Am I the asshole for being upfront with my friend about how I was able to buy a house? I, 26F, recently bought a house with help from my parents. On my own, I had saved up enough for a 30% down payment and was getting ready to look into buying a house with a mortgage. I'm starting a PhD program and will need stable housing for the next 5-7 years. When I told them this, my parents very generously offered to help me buy the house in cash. My parents are very well off and I acknowledge that I've had a very privileged upbringing, but I still try to not draw attention to this so people won't treat me differently, and I live pretty frugally. At first I denied the offer because I feel bad taking money from my parents. Up until now they've only paid for my car and my education, through a college fund. They refused to let me refuse and said that they'd rather help me buy the house in cash than have me pay more than what it's worth in interest. They also didn't want me to have to worry about affording a mortgage payment on a PhD student's income. Instead, I will be paying my dad back in fixed monthly payments. The house that I decided on is a very modest size and price, and was even $100,000 under the budget my parents were willing to help me with. Fast forward to last week, I finally closed and started moving in. I invited some of my close friends over for a housewarming get-together. When they got there, one of my friends, 27F, asked me how I was able to afford such a nice house. I was upfront with her and told her that my parents very generously helped me with it. I didn't go into detail. She then started pressing me pretty hard for more information about my mortgage payments and interest rates, talking about how they're ridiculously high and it was stupid of me to buy in this economy. I'll admit that I got annoyed at her continuing to press about this in front of everyone at what was supposed to be a fun, laid-back event, so I told her that they helped me buy it in cash and that I'd rather not talk about it anymore. She then goes off on me about how I'm the reason people like her can't buy a house right now and that it was unfair of me to take the opportunity to get the house away from someone who needed it more, by putting in a cash offer. She even went on to insult my parents and my adoption and told me that the only reason I have this life is because my rich parents bought me from overseas. That last comment was the breaking point for me and I kicked her out of the party. Half of my friends are on my side and the other half said I was too harsh on her and that I should have just lied. I'm starting to think I should have just lied too, but I also didn't want to act like I bought the house all on my own, because I didn't. So, am I the asshole here? Edit for clarity. I did tell her that I was paying my dad back, but that went over her head. In hindsight I could have told her that I put down 30% of my own money, but in the heat of the moment I didn't think of it and I don't know if that would have helped much. She's made offhanded comments about stuff like my career and education before but never publicly or this extreme. Edit 2. I just got off from working overnight and holy shit, I did not expect the amount of response I got on this. Thank you to everyone for the congratulations and well wishes in my doc program. For those asking, I'll be studying biomedical engineering, more specifically tissue regeneration. It's gonna be a journey but I'm very excited. As an update, I've decided I won't be apologizing to her and I've cut contact with her and will likely cut contact with the other friends that sided with her. This is very hard for me, especially with lingering abandonment trauma, and anxiety, and trust issues, the whole works, from my adoption, but that's why I have a therapist. Thanks again for all of the feedback. Definitely taking some of y'all's advice for shutting down conversations in the future. I don't understand her reasoning. Just because your parents have money doesn't mean you just took away from someone who needed it. Where does she expect you to live? It's really none of her business how you afforded the house. Maybe next time respond with, I don't talk about money. Edited to add, I do understand her reasoning, she's jealous. Not the asshole. She comes to your housewarming and pulls this? She is easily Not the asshole. She doesn't understand that they're your mortgage. Paying interest isn't getting anyone at all. My parents did the same for the same reasons. It's absurd to waste money on interest if you don't need to. Not the asshole. Her comments about your adoption make me want to cry. I'm sorry, that must have been painful. Not the asshole. She is not your friend and neither are the people who think you were too harsh on an asshole who makes a comment like that about your being adopted. Am I the asshole for expecting to be left alone in the morning and not being woken up? My husband and I flew out to Maine 2 weeks ago. We are from Canada, to visit family for his niece's graduation party, and when we landed, we were told all of our luggage was misplaced. We have been fighting with the airline for 2 weeks trying to get our shit back, which includes my wallet and my husband's passport. We can't travel back until we get that. To make matters worse, My husband's credit card was pinged as fraud, so now we have no access to money until we go to our bank directly and let them know the charges were from us. They won't do over the phone verification supposedly. Anyways, my husband's sister, is letting us crash on her couch until we figure it out. It's just been one shit show after another and I thoroughly regret coming here. To make matters worse, I'm 25 weeks pregnant. So my blood pressure is skyrocketed right now. We also have our dog with us. Thank God they didn't misplace her in transit. Anyways, I know I shouldn't expect much because my is helping us out, but I'm getting a bit frustrated with the sleeping arrangements and the lack of respect. The couch is big enough for my husband and I to sleep head to head, and at the end where my husband's feet is a small lounge spot, one of those couches with the long piece for storage underneath. We aren't able to get to bed until sometimes midnight because his sister and her husband will be in the living room watching TV. Which whatever, but then her husband is up at 5 a.m. and sitting on that small part of the lounge and blaring the news while sitting on my husband's feet. Every single morning. And then, at 5:30, my husband's other sister shows up here to drop her dog off and insists on going to our dog's cage and getting her barking and growling while loudly baby talking our dog. Our dog does this whenever anyone besides us approaches her cage, and she was working with a trainer before we got trapped here. I know beggars can't be choosers, but I don't think I'm asking too much when I say I want a little respect when it comes to sleep. I say this because this house is large and this is technically the second living room. My husband watches TV in the other living room all day long but insists on blaring the news in this living room in the morning. Almost like he doesn't want us to sleep. There's also multiple entrances to this house and the other has to walk through the entire giant house to get to us on the other side to harass our dog and get her barking and snarling every morning. My husband said to drop it and it'll be over soon, but I'm so done with this. Am I the asshole? ETA. To clear up confusion, carry-on cost extra and we didn't want to pay the $80, so we made the stupid decision to just throw everything in our suitcases after we checked in. The only reason he had his wallet was because it fit in his pocket, but he put his passport in his suitcase because he didn't want it bent. I stuck mine in my shirt pocket, but my purse is in my suitcase. We can't go across the border without his passport, so we can't borrow money to travel back by vehicle. I've considered out luggage lost at this point, so we called to get a replacement passport for my husband, but they're saying it could take 8 weeks. I honestly can't get past your passports and wallets being in you checked luggage and not your carry-on. ETA. Esh. Let me get that straight, you had your important documents and money not on you but in the luggage? You can't pay Sil back for a hotel? Or have you spoken to Bill? I would ask him to please watch TV in the other room. Explain how stressful that lack of sleep is on the baby. Or, move to the other living room's couch when he comes in the morning. If you're sufficiently tired you'll fall back asleep. You're in Maine. Go to a land border into Canada and explain the situation. It'll be a pain in the ass and probably take half a day, but after additional verification they will allow your husband to cross. Not the asshole. The two of them deliberately waking you up at 5 a.m. for no good reason is honestly quite astonishing. I don't think it's rude to at least ask them to respect your privacy. Especially if they're keeping you up late as well. Would I be the asshole if I took them for all they're worth? First, let me say my ex-husband of 22 years was an amazing man. We remained good friends for another 3 years until he died of a liver disease recently. I was his will executor up until last year when I moved out of state, and we decided he should have someone close to home as executor. According to him, he chose a good friend of his. He did not want any of his family as executors. His family has always hated me, for reasons I don't even know. I was 18 when I met my ex. Just a kid. But I rubbed them the wrong way for 25 years. They didn't even tell me when he passed away. I heard it a day later through someone who isn't even a friend. He got extremely sick very quickly and died very quickly. But he had battled a liver disease for years. I had just spoken to him a week before he died and he sounded okay. I knew what his final wishes were, so I sent them to his family. I helped them find all his relevant paperwork from afar. Told them how to get into his safes, who to call for insurance policies, how to get in touch with the VA for his cremation and internment to be covered. These were the wishes of my ex, for me to help his mother as much as I could. So I did it. And then she shut me out once she got what she wanted. I found out later through his work and other policies that he left me on as beneficiary. Though I already figured this because he told me. His family is pissed. His mom won't share his most current will. kept telling me she was following his written wishes for me not to be involved. But wouldn't share those wishes with me. She wouldn't allow me to go to his funeral. Told me as long as I didn't go, my family could attend to say goodbye. I didn't go so that my family at least had that closure. I still don't have a copy of his current will, but my ex told me 2 weeks before he passed that I was in it. I'm now under the impression that he never changed his will like he told me. That he kept me on as executor. His mother emailed me this past weekend to tell me she was petitioning the court to become executor, with no other explanation, which makes no sense unless 1. The executor he told me he was changing it to decided she wanted nothing to do with his crazy family, or she had too much work as an intellectual property attorney to deal with his estate. His family had told me she was handling his estate. 2. I was always listed as executor and his family is going to pretend that he didn't have a will. I can't get the woman who I was told by my ex was executor to contact me. She was a good friend of his, but her and I didn't have good relations. I've hired an attorney who basically wrote the probate laws in the state where my ex passed. Right now, I'm only asking the woman who I thought was executor for a copy of his will, copying his mother. But could you blame me if I sue them all for everything they have if I find out I was supposed to be executor? So many more nuances to this story. Not enough space to explain. Thanks for letting me vent. Not the asshole. Your lawyer needs to get to the bottom of this. Any dishonesty needs to be exposed. Not the asshole. This man was your husband for many years and your good friend thereafter. And he trusted you more than he trusted his family to look after his will once he passed. That his mother is trying to circumvent that is not okay. Take them to the cleaners. Why WNBTAY? Because you simply only tried to follow his wishes and they're preventing it from happening. They're most likely hiding the will because they're probably not in it and don't want you to have what he left you. Yes, you should sue them. They are willing to break the law so you don't get what is yours, so maybe they need a dose of reality and law to GRT them to realize what awful people they are. Go for it. You put in 22 years plus into that and your ex did include you in the will. It's not up to someone, mother or not, to decide to write you out of it all. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. It sounds as if they're being sneaky as hell just to be jerks. Am I the asshole for naming my son after my wife's ex? I, 34M, have been married to my wife, 35F, for 6 years. We have always wanted kids and last year we were lucky enough to finally be able to start our family when my wife found out she was pregnant with our baby boy. We were having a lot of trouble on what to name our child because we had such different ideas for the baby's name. But we decided to not stress about during the pregnancy and wait until she had our baby to decide the name. After a while of deciding, I had decided that I thought it would be good to name our son after my recently deceased father whose name was Francis. I thought that this would be a perfect name that we would both agree on since she was extremely close with my dad when he was still with us. Before I could tell her about my idea for the name, her water broke and she was having bad contractions, so I rushed her to the ER and forgot about the name entirely. She went into labor and ended up having to get an emergency C-section, which was obviously very unplanned. Afterwards, to try to clear my stress, I was doing the paperwork and decided that I would put down the name Francis as the baby's official name so that when my wife was okay after the surgery she wouldn't have to worry about choosing the name. In this moment I didn't realize I had totally forgotten to even tell her about my idea for our son's name. This is the part where I realized that I might be an asshole. When I told my wife about the name, she instantly flipped out at me. She screamed at me, "You know the name Francis makes me uncomfortable since it's my ex's name." I knew her ex from a previous relationship had the name, but I didn't realize it was that serious and it had totally slipped my mind in the moment. Trying to keep her calm, I said, "Don't worry babe, it's not that big of a deal. It'll all be okay." She instantly screamed back at me, "It won't be okay. My son is going to be walking around for the rest of his life with my ex's name." In the heat of the moment I shouted back, "Well, it sounds like to me you're still a little bit caught up on him." After that she screamed back, "Just go." And I knew that there was no point in arguing with her anymore. She hasn't talked to me much since and we just got home from the hospital and she still is giving me the silent treatment. I don't know if I'm the asshole and I'm not sure how to move forward in this situation. Am I the asshole? Additional info, tiny update. This was her boyfriend from high school and they had a short-term relationship. Also, we talked briefly about naming our son after a family member and she seemed okay with it and she said that we should keep it as an option, and since we couldn't agree on anything else I thought it would be okay. I also don't constantly think about my wife's exes, so it truly slipped my mind going in. I understand that we can change the name, and I plan on talking to her about it. I've read the few responses posted and I'll keep those things in mind when I talk to her. You are the asshole for one reason only. You decided on the name without your wife. That's the real issue here. I've had 3 births and never once did they just bring the birth certificate forms to my room immediately when I was too shaken up to read them. Each time they came the next day and explained the form. Did you forge your wife's signature or is this just a made-up story? Are you under a bridge waiting on billy goats? Because if not, you deliberately chose to name the baby what you wanted without any consideration for your wife's wishes, thoughts, or desires concerning the name. I am calling bullshit on this situation being an accident. You should really consider delving into the real reason you would sandbag your wife about naming the child she carried around for 9 months. You have to know you are the asshole. Try to make amends and start working as a team player instead of trying to best your wife to obtain your choice. You might consider diaper changing as your duty until the end of time. You are the asshole for shouting at your wife who was understandably furious at you. Naming the kid after her ex was a D-move, yay. But the worst was how dare you decide the baby's name on your own? Never even discussing it with your wife? Be lucky she allowed you home. I wouldn't have. You are the asshole choosing their baby's name as something most parents look forward to doing together. It's a huge thing, not a minor inconvenience she can just forget. You took that away from her. You've ruined what should be joyous days for all of you. And your excuse is ludicrous. You knew perfectly well she wouldn't agree to your choice, you just wanted your own way. And then you turned verbally abusive when she didn't immediately bow down to your wants. These are the actions of a spoiled, entitled brat who doesn't care one bit for his wife's feelings or opinions. You can change the name and you should, because this is a mess of your making and that's the only way it gets sorted out.